You are on the clock. Wait.
Was wondering if the live stream is set up.
Oh, pardon me.
It's ready to go?
She just gave you the thumbs up.
Sorry about that. You could tell uncharacteristically I'm opening the meeting, but hello, Tina.
Hello, Mr. Mitchum.
How are you?
Good. How are you doing?
Fine, thank you.
Good. You ready to hear about some budget information?
Oh, yes.
Okay, great. So today we are going to have our first board budget workshop. The process has started with the governor's plan. It has made it through House Ways and Means. It's made it through the House, still to go through the Senate. So we'll catch you up to date on what's been going on up till now. So the big news is that this year there's been a state funding change, like a complete topsy-turvy of the state funding formula. In the past, we've used the base student cost has been used. That is no longer a part of the calculation. The methodology that was presented in the governor's plan is a different way to allocate money to the school districts. So his plan is called the Aid to Classrooms program. So the factors that are included in this program are the number of teachers needed to serve the estimated number of students, your average daily membership, based on a prescribed ratio that is come up with at the state level, and then also the cost of a teacher. So the first part of that, the number of teachers needed to serve estimated number of students, the governor's proposal used a target ratio of 11.7 as the student-teacher ratio. Now that's not the actual number of students per class, but that's for calculation purposes only. Then the cost of a teacher is defined as the average education and experience on the state minimum salary cost for a teacher with a master's degree and 12 years with experience, 12 years of experience, and their fringe benefits. So the cost is $66,924, and this was the governor's plan. So the total for that program was calculated at $4.2 billion. They came out with the state share would be 75%, local share at 25%, and that's typically been how we have been able to fund our budget, 75% state and 25% local, so we're right on target with that. That was helpful. The percentage of the district weighted pupil units out of the total weighted pupil units for the state for DD2 is calculated at 3.17% for the total weighted pupil units. So all these factors are going into this very detailed calculation. Another item that we wanted to point out, some of the key factors on this state funding change in this Aid to Classrooms program, is there are no longer separate classifications, separate allocations for these funding sources. So this is kind of important. So when I show you on our screen, on our slide, in a few slides, all the different funding areas, you're going to see some zeros. That's because all of these items were rolled up under Aid to Classrooms. So you'll no longer see a separate allocation for state aid to classrooms or teacher salary supplements or employer contributions, students at risk of failure, and aid to districts. All of those items are rolled up into one. And the thought process that they explained to us behind that was so that we could have greater flexibility, and all those amounts would just be rolled into just one pot, and we would just be able to use it as we see fit. So currently we are already following that flexibility in our general fund, but not to the full amount. So a couple of our funds, the aid to districts and the students at risk of failure, we've kept a portion of those funds back. So the aid to districts we've used for PD, for professional development, and some of the at-risk funding we have held back for specific at-risk programs. Another key point in this state funding change is that districts must meet the statewide minimum salary schedule. So in District 2, we were very close to already meeting that schedule with the increased amount to $40,000 as the base starting teacher. We were at $39,723. So we were only off by $277 for that cell. Now we were off in some of the other cells. If you had a master's degree in 2 years, we may have been off by $1,000 in that cell. So there were a few teachers who fell into that. So we would have to raise everyone to the state minimum salary schedule. Of all of those teachers, it only cost about $210,000 for us to get everybody up to the state minimum salary schedule. 210,000. So we were very close to already meeting the state minimum on every cell, even with that $4,000 increase. So again, that's the little bit of confusion about the $4,000 increase. But we'll talk about that some more later.
I'm sorry to interrupt you, but before you go off this slide, can you just explain to me, I didn't really understand, because you said that we currently follow the flexibility to the general fund, but not the full amount. Like, what do you mean?
So a couple of those funds, the students at risk of failure and the aid to districts, we have been getting those in state funds. So we keep the money in those state funds, and then we flex money over into the general fund. So for students at risk of failure, we hire a lot of Read 180 teachers that are charged in the general fund. So we're able to use funding flexibility to move that out of the state fund over to general fund. We do hold a little bit of that back because there are certain at-risk programs that we just keep in that at-risk fund. So we keep that money over there. Same thing with aid to districts. We flex that over to the general fund for expenditures that are needed for teachers, but we keep a little bit of that back for professional development. And all those are allowable expenditures in those different state funds. So we don't flex the full amount. So in this Aid to Classrooms program, they're including that entire fund amount in our general fund now.
So it does give us more flexibility, essentially.
It gives us flexibility, but I guess what I'm trying to say is that whenever they're talking about the money that they're giving us over in the general fund now, we don't include all of that over there, so we're kind of missing a little bit of that money. It's basically $1 million between those two funds that we keep over in those separate accounts. Does that make a little bit of sense?
Yeah. So I guess it's kind of allowing them to say that they're giving more, but
Right.
really they're just, okay, I see what
Got
you're
it. You
getting at.
definitely got it. Yes.
Okay, good.
And it's
Thank
not
you.
that we can't.
Flexibility is good. That allows us not to have to put it in these accounts necessarily, but at the same time, it doesn't give us any new money. As a matter of fact, it's a little bit short overall.
It's a little bit short. Not that we couldn't code those expenditures over to general fund. We certainly could, and maybe we will, but we just don't include those in our general operating budget because they're for specific items. Yeah, that makes sense. So, okay, good, yay. The last item under here for this Aid to Classrooms program is that the student weightings have been adjusted. So so every student starts with a 1.0 weighting. So when we talk about our weighted pupil units, the state has determined that if there's a student that requires a little more care, they'll give you a little bit more money. So our students with disabilities, in the past, they have been weighted at 1.74. So above the 1.0, they give us a 1.74 or up to 2.57 for some of the students with disabilities. Well, now they've just bundled all of them together. Now they're at 2.6. So that really is helpful for our special needs students for that funding. However, there is no separate weighting for our dual credit students any longer, and there's no separate weighting, I haven't told Dr. Harrison this, for the career technology students, sorry. But it's okay. We still get the 1.0 weighting for them, it's just not the add-on weighting for them. The pupils in poverty weighting has gone up, so it's an additional 0.5 where it was a 0.2 before. So those are some of the changes to the state funding formula. So bad news, when the governor's proposal came out, it decreased our allocation by $2 million. That was not good. However, it went to the House Ways and Means Committee after that, so they made some adjustments. And the first thing that helped us was that the student-teacher ratio went from 11.7 to 11.2, so that gave us some extra money there. They also changed the teacher cost calculation to $69,153. Again, that's just part of these calculations. Again, as we pointed out, the starting salary went to $40,000. We were already at $39,723, so we were very close. The total for the program went up to $4.6 billion. They still had the 75%, 25%, and our weighted pupil units went to 3.02%, so that was a little less. However, that calculation did increase us, so we went from a negative $2 million to a positive $2 million, so that was helpful. And one of the 11.2 and the cost of the teacher calculation, it went up didn't see what the original cost for the teacher was at 66.9, now it's 69.1. And the other point that they added out of the House Ways and Means Committee was that by a proviso, they said that we would receive at least the amount that we had received in FY22 or the amount determined in this new formula. So it helped out for this new formula. So just to point out some of our specific information for DD2, our average daily membership for the 45th day for this year was 24,666 students. We're getting ready to pull our 135th day numbers, so we'll see where we stand with that. I just wanted to point out that last year, so we're a little higher than last year. We were at 24,270, but the year before, we were at 25,298, and that was right before the pandemic hit. So we really haven't caught back up to pre-pandemic enrollment yet. And for our weighted pupil units, the new formula is at 36,342. For our 45th day, we were at 33,138. So that's just the way that the new calculation runs. Now I'll skip over to our fund balance. This is always a hot topic, so I just wanted to let y'all know where we stand with that. So at June 30th of 2021, our fund balance was $39,166,34 for our unassigned fund balance. So as a percentage of our general fund budget, that was 17.3%. So the Government Finance Officers Association recommends that you keep at least 2 months' worth of expenditures in your savings account in your fund balance in case you run on hard times, in case a hurricane blows through here, you're not able to get your money. 16.7% is the minimum that they recommend. Unfortunately, DD2 is limited locally to 15% as a cap for our fund balance, and that's Act 593, which is the only legislation that's placed on Dorchester 2 and Dorchester 4. We're the only district in the entire state that has a cap on our fund balance, which is really not great. We do have, that was presented from Senator Rose many, many years ago in the 1990s to have a cap on our fund balance. So it would be great if we were able to, our ultimate goal is to have that repealed so that we're not held to that 15% fund balance. But I did find out, thanks to Christy and her eagle eyes, she did see that in the House version of the budget, Proviso 1.82 suspends the cap of the 15% for June 30th of 22. I was so relieved by that because I've been worried to death. I talked with Allison over the weekend. I said, what do we do if we are going to go over the 15%? I'm going to be breaking the law. So we're not going to be breaking the law. I'm so happy about that.
Has it made it through the House already, or is that just
It's through the House, now it has to go through the Senate.
Okay,
we'll
so
keep
it
our
has
fingers
made it through the
crossed
House. Very
that
good.
it will remain in the budget at the Senate level, so.
And do we have any idea when the Senate's going to be taking that up?
They're in subcommittees now, in education subcommittees, and I don't know, do you know, Billy, of the date that the Senate, the full Senate is meeting? No, they're in subcommittees right now, so we have a good few more weeks before they would determine it. But maybe if we don't talk about it, they won't
Yeah,
know
really.
anything about it.
Sounds like a plan.
But at least it's there. Another item that we wanted to point out was our federal funding that we have received from the ESSER funds. So the first pot of money that we received was the CARES Act. We had $3.5 million. We have spent almost all of that except for $43,000. That's mainly, we had an allocation for equitable services for private schools out of that first pot of ESSER money, and so we just have to get the expenditure claims from them to be able to pay for those items, and that's pretty much all that we have left to spend out of our ESSER 1 funds. That grant ends on September 30th of 22. In ESSER 2, that's the pot of money that we're working on currently. We had $18 million allocation. That grant runs through September 30th of 2023. We still have $8.2 million in that fund. Our big emphasis has been in this pot of money, the summer remediation programs. We buy ionization units for air quality, building repairs to promote safety. We were able to pay for some additional teachers to reduce class sizes during this current school year, and pay for additional permanent subs. And then also, we were able to capture some indirect cost transferred to the general fund to help with some one-time expenditures, because those monies are helpful now, but they don't last forever, and they're not recurring monies. But if we had some big expenditures that, not big, but if we had some unusual expenditures that we needed to pay for now, we have these indirect costs to pay for that. The same thing holds true in the ESSER 3 funds. We're able to allocate some indirect costs from that. Our allocation from the ARP ESSER 3 monies was $40.5 million. We have $35.4 million remaining. We've only spent a little bit out of that. We will continue with our extensive summer programs, our after-school tutoring, reading and math camps, special need camps in this summer and next summer. This grant ends 9/30/24. We're able to purchase educational technology. We're working on hiring some social workers out of this money and some additional mental health counselors to help with social emotional. So these are items that y'all had voted on whenever we passed this plan. Wow, back in 2 falls ago. It's been a little time, so. Okay, so now for some pictures concerning our budget revenues for next year. As we were saying before, that the state requires at least the 75-25% allocation. So now we have gone up to 26% with our local taxes. That I think that's the first time we've gone over 25%, so that's exciting. The big pot, the orange, is the new aid to classrooms, where all of those accounts, all those different funding sources are combined. Then we have some state in lieu of taxes. That's our Tier 3 money that the state reimburses us for, since we don't have property taxes on homeowners. That's the state money for that. It's 16% of our budget. So when you add, and then also the state restricted monies for the, we received some money to help towards the health insurance increase. We'll talk about that further in just a second. But if you add those pieces of the pie from the bottom up to the 4%, that's 72.7% is state revenues that our budget consists of. We have a tiny little sliver, you can't even really count it, of federal money that we get the impact aid. And then the transfers from other funds, which, since everything's all combined in general fund, we don't really have to transfer anything over to the general fund, so that's just a little tiny sliver there too. So for our expenditures, the big piece of the pie is instruction. We spend 61% of our expenditures on instruction, another 9% on instructional support, which would be your media specialists, your guidance counselors, everybody who also supports the instruction, which is what it says. And then school management is your principals at 8%. So when you add those together, you get 78% of our expenditures are directly affecting the students. So instruction, instructional support, and the principals. There was a calculation some time ago that required you to at least spend 70%, and we've always been above that, and so we're still there at 78%. So we have the other functions of transportation and safety, facilities and custodial, business services, district leadership, and then some transfers to support other programs. And this pie chart really hasn't changed in a long, long time. We spend 87% of our budget on salaries and benefits, so we really don't have a big piece of the pie to spend on other things. We really focus a lot on our staff, and that salaries and benefits goes to pay our folks. So based on the revenue projections from the House, so after it went through the governor to the House Ways and Means and then to the House, this is a little bit of a change from what we talked about a few slides ago. And then these numbers are hot off the press. We got the House numbers at 5:30 on Friday afternoon. And then this top line, local property tax increase assessment, came from JJ at about 10 a.m. this morning. So we're putting all this together. So literally it's hot off the press. So local property tax increase from assessments that they're estimating at the county level is $106,000. The state revenue in lieu of taxes we were talking about with the Tier 3 money, they have projected I have 1.1 million here. I'm not exactly sure of that calculation because the amount that they gave us, we share part of it with the career school, so I don't have the exact amount for us, but it'll be 1.1, could be a little bit higher. The aided classrooms, that is all those funds that were rolled up. So now we get $123 million in this aided classrooms. However, you see a negative 117 million where they no longer give us allocations based on these different funds. The retiree insurance that they were helping towards the health insurance increase was $559,000, and then we have other local revenue and indirect costs of an increase of $734,000. So for FY23, our additional state and local revenues increased by $8.7 million. Not bad. So as I was pointing out a little while ago, with our leadership group, the 123 minus the 117 sounds really good. It's like a $6 million increase from the state. Yay, state. So this screen, however, the first couple of lines are mandated by the state that we have to pay. However, they've paid us more than what they're mandating this time, so it actually works to our benefit. The health insurance at an 18% increase on the employer cost is $1.5 million. That's only for half of a year, so that increase starts in January. So really the other piece will catch up with us when we get to July. But 1.5 million, the 1% retirement increase that went into effect for this year, they did give us some money towards that, is 1.3 million. And then a teacher step increase is also mandated from the state, and we had enough to budget 2% for all the teachers, plus the 2% average, including fringe, is $2.4 million. Then, as Mr. Pye and the board always is very strongly wanting us to make sure that we cover the operations folks and everyone else besides teachers, including teachers, so that everyone can get an increase. So we also budgeted a step increase for all other employees of an average of 2%. That's additional $1 million. The next line shows the additional costs that we need for our new middle school that's opening east at Edisto. A lot of our teachers will be transferring as the students transfer, but we need additional folks that won't be transferring. So we needed a new principal and assistant principals, we need a new nurse, we need some custodial workers. So just those additional staff members that we need at the new school, plus the energy cost for a new building. So all that equated to $1.6 million. The next item is something we've been talking about, and Mr. Pye said we need to do this. This has been something the board has wanted to do for the past couple of years, so here we are. We eliminated the 10% retiree to production. So next year when folks come back, they will not have a 10% deduction. We're hoping that this will help us. We hope we don't have to experience a terrible teacher shortage, but Elena was really happy about this too, as contracts are getting ready to come back out, that if someone's thinking about retiring, well, just don't come back and you won't have the 10% retiree. Another program that we have been wanting to implement with all of the new devices that are going out to students and to staff, and we really need some additional support, is to have a student co-op program where we will have one student in each media center to help with the checking in and out of devices. If there's something that's broken or misplaced or something that just needs to be fixed, if they can assess it, or if any way that they can help with the technology piece. So that, and it's really inexpensive to have these students help us for $250,000 plus they get credit for a class. So Dr. Harrison's been working on pushing that. So we're glad to include that in the budget. We also have a few other just miscellaneous increases and transfers to other programs of $294,000. So the total of all of those expenditure increases is $9,043,844. So this exciting, yes, to see that our revenues were 8.7 million, our expenditures were 9 million, so that really only leaves us in the negative for 282,000. I can't remember the last time we brought such a small deficit to y'all the first go round. let's hope everything continues to go well through the Senate. So maybe this can be pushed over just a little bit and we'll be on the positive side. So all those were words and explanation to see all the busy numbers. But they make sense, Ms. Wimberly. So the first column is our current budget. So our current budget for all of our revenues is $225,932,045. You'll see on the first line the local property taxes for this year as compared to what our projected revenues are. Last year, the county their calculation was at a 5% increase in assessment. We don't typically budget more than 1.5%, maybe 3%. So it looks like our projected revenues are going to come in at $59 million. But as I said, we just got the information from the county this morning, so he is projecting that for our proposed budget for next year of $61 million. So we kept that at $61 million, and our increase for next year is $106,000. So I'll go back. The projected revenues is in the middle column, and that's the column when we look at the revenues that we've received year to date and multiply it out to project to the rest of the year, it looks like our projected revenues are going to come in at $223.5 million, which is a little bit less than our total revenues that were projected. But you'll see on the next slide how all that shakes out. It's not bad. So our proposed budget, as we were talking about from the slides before, that's just in the different columns. You'll see the state revenue in lieu of taxes. That's our tier 3 money where we had the 1.1 million increase. The next line item is the aid to classrooms. And I have a star over there on the left because that's our new pot where they put $123 million. So on the next few rows where you have the star on the right-hand side, those are the lines that roll up into that 123. So that's why it looks funny with all those zeros in there. So we've reported the projected revenues that the state is telling us that we'll get through the end of the year for the EFA, which that's a little bit less than what we were anticipating or what we had budgeted actually. But then on the fringe benefits for employers, the projected revenues from the state are higher than what our budget was, so it really shakes out okay. So that proposed budget has a lot of zeros in it, but like I said, it's all rolled up. We have our school bus driver salary and benefits. That number hasn't changed yet, but the state has said that they were going to send us some money towards that. There is an 8% increase for bus drivers above the state minimum. So that has not been built into the budget yet because they have not provided us any information yet. So that'll be on our next version when we bring that to y'all. We have a little increase in our indirect costs. You'll see 2.6 million this year. In our other state revenues and transfers, since all of that again is in general fund, we don't really need to make those huge transfers. So we have a big deficit, it looks like there, but it's just because it's already over in the general fund. So our proposed budget for the 22-23 year is $692,925. Excuse me. So for our expenditures, we put those in the categories like you saw on the pie chart over there. So our instruction current budget of $139 million. Our projected expenditures through this year are $137. We're proposing $143 for next year. And the difference in that is $2.7 million over the budget. That's mainly for our new teachers that we have to bring in, some new staff for the new school. There's also the 2% increase reflected there. So that's the difference in the increase for the instruction. I'll go back and hit on the projected expenditures for this year because that's not a very large amount, so we're happy to show that too, that our projected revenues from the last slide were $223,223.5, and our projected expenditures are only $224.3, so that really only leaves us at a deficit of $855,000. And these are just projections, so we'll see as the year goes along how close we can get. We feel that's super close for a $225 million budget. The one thing that I will add is that we did have calculated in here for the bonus, so those are showing in there as well. So we're really doing well even with the paying out the bonus. Our proposed budget, we did not include a bonus in there. That's just the current budget plus the 2% increase in the additional staff for our proposed budget of $234,975,889. And that really just leaves us with a very small deficit of $282,964. I just can't believe it. We've never brought such a small deficit before. So we can attribute that to we've had some one-time monies that were able to come in, like the indirect costs from these ESSER funds that we're able to use again for one-time expenditures. So those are very helpful to come over to the general fund to help us out. So a couple items that that are not included that I just wanted to bring to your attention. We're going to, as we get through the year, and as the budget continues in Columbia and we see what the Senate brings out, we would like to see if we can do something with the per pupil allocations. We decreased those 10 years ago when we were going through our budget struggles. They were at $75 per student that goes to the schools, and they haven't recovered yet. It's $52.50 for 10 years. So we were going to take a look at that as like I said, if we get some additional funds that come from the Senate. And then the big elephant in the room is the $4,000 for the state teacher salaries. So the House has proposed, the House passed in their budget that a school district must maintain a local salary supplements no less than the prior year. So what they've done on their minimum salary schedule is increased every cell by $4,000. And we've been talking about how our minimum of $39,723 is only $277 away from the $40,000. So we've already had a local supplement because the state was at $36,000. They wanted to increase it by the $4,000 to get to $40,000. So we were already there. But if we are required to increase every cell by the $4,000, that's the big number that's on there. It's $9.3 million, which the state did not give us that kind of money. So there is a waiver. There's a potential waiver of the current local salary supplement that's being considered in the Senate. So if that doesn't pass in the Senate, then the House version of the budget states that we will have to pay the $4,000. But I don't know where we're going to get that money either. So I just wanted to leave that as our final closing thoughts. It was such a good budget until then.
Thank you, Ms. Meunier. Board members, questions, comments, thoughts?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear Ms.
Go
Crosby.
ahead, you can go first if you want to.
No, I just said it's just a shame the 5250 that we have to live with, and how many, it's 10 years, it's been longer than that we've, been cut short every time. It just amazes me. We're
going to try to look at that, like I said, when the Senate numbers come out. If they're a little bit higher, then we really want to go back to the $75 per pupil to give to the schools for their programs and such that they need.
Right. Thank you.
I just wanted to hear your thoughts on the change in the funding proposal. I mean,
It's a little complicated.
well, I'm just curious if you think, I mean, obviously it's it sounds like their verbiage makes it sound like to the general public that it's better, that, and it looks like we're not being hurt that much, but, I'm just curious on your kind of thoughts about it, if you don't mind sharing that.
That's fine. It is complicated how they came up with the calculations. I don't know that I can explain it down to the nth degree. I don't know. Maybe I can call Billy and he can explain it down to the nth degree for us. It's a little confusing,
you don't have to explain it. I don't mean that. I just want to know what your thoughts are and kind of in general.
Well, like you said, it sounds like it's very super helpful. I think what kind of got to us was that when the governor said that all teachers were going to get a $4,000 raise, that really hurt us because that was not in his proposal to provide us the money for that. So that, I think, got a little complicated and confusing to a lot of people.
I think that piece is misleading, and I also think the whole student-to-teacher ratio piece is a little misleading for the general public, I'm saying, because you put that number out there, and it looks like, oh, great, now all the classrooms are going to have this great teacher-student
Exactly.
ratio, but it's
We were
not
just talking about that. It's
that
like,
case of-
why did they even, what does 11.6
Right.
even mean? That's
And
just
they've
part of the
taken away the term
calculation.
base student costs, essentially,
Right.
it's just gone. So I think,
I'm not sure if that makes it easier or not.
well, I feel like because for so many years we've kind of hammered like fully funded, and part of it is probably that they're sick of hearing that, and now we can't really say that. I mean, I don't know. To me, it seems like, they're trying to make it look like they are being more supportive, but are they? And that's kind of what I was just wondering what your thoughts are, because,
I think the same way you think.
Okay.
It looks nice, but it's a little convoluted and confusing. And yeah, the student-teacher ratio is not exactly something that we can wrap our arms around and say, oh, well, it really should be 11.0. We don't have 11.0 students in our classes, so what does that even really mean? But it's just the calculation, so I'm sorry I can't explain it better. Thank you for asking.
Thank you very much. So during the board meeting, you'll give a abbreviated presentation. Is that what you're thinking?
Absolutely, unless you want to do it.
You can give an abbreviated presentation.
Yes, sir.
No, I'm just, thank you very much.
Oh, wait, you know
I
what?
hate
I'm so
that.
sorry. I'm so
I
sorry.
hate that the last thing we see is
Nope,
that
that's
9
not the
point.
last thing.
Oh,
Sorry.
good. Okay, sorry.
Hold on, let's go on.
All right.
So we had some major initiatives going on in DD2. Let's finish on a good note. So we are completing the district office. That was the final project in our referendum. We're doing a little bit more, not patio work. What are we doing out here? Yardscaping, yes. Just to fancy it up a little bit. It looks really nice. We have loved our building, so thank y'all for supporting this, that we would continue with the district office renovation. Final project, so yay. Construction of the new middle school. We're using impact fees and geo bond debt with that. That's on track to open right before school starts, but we're on track. And then we are going to continue to address the recovery of the learning loss by using our ESSER funds. So we're really focused on helping the students get caught back up.
Just for the sake of ESSER funds, do you think there's an ESSER 4 coming?
Have heard nothing about an ESSER 4.
Okay.
We still have a good bit of our ESSER 2
Right.
and ESSER 3 to use, so I don't feel like we would.
Okay. Any other questions? Evan?
So I guess how much of our budget is being supplemented by the ESSER funds? And I guess second part would be what's going to happen, I guess, 2 or 3 years when that's over? Will there be a difference, I guess, when they're missing?
So we've been talking a lot about that, like we're using all this money in ESSER to address learning loss and to provide math coaches and additional teachers, and what happens when the ESSER money runs out. We'll be able to, absorb is probably not the right word, but we'll be able to continue with those teachers in our general fund budget because we have teachers that retire every year and folks who may leave. So through attrition, we'll be able to keep those teachers. So we don't feel like we'll be letting like 30 teachers go. So don't worry about that.
Do we have a deadline on when to spend the ESSER money?
Yes, ma'am. The ESSER 2 money is by September of '23, and the ESSER 3 money is by September of '24. So we still have time. We
2023?
really want to hit on those summer programs and the after-school tutoring to help the students. Did I answer your question, Mr. Guthrie? Okay.
so you're kind of saying that we would still be able to employ all those people, but it would just be in a different role,
Yes, ma'am.
potentially.
So they wouldn't be specifically math coaches. They would
Right.
be a teacher in another area. So.
And then I had one other question. Have you heard anything about the situation with food? Do we know if that is going to be funded again for sure, or if it's not?
For sure, not for sure. There's,
So, but the
there's
decision hasn't
grumblings
been
about
made?
perhaps they were going to continue that so that we would have free food again through the summer feeding program. We're actually trying to determine if we're going to do the open to the community this summer or just open to the students who are in our schools for the summer
So we do have it through the summer,
through June 30th.
through June 30th, but we don't know yet beyond that.
Don't know.
Okay.
We're hoping at least until the end of the summer through July programs, we hope.
Okay, but no word on next year.
Not yet. We'll
Okay.
definitely keep you up to
Thank
date
you.
on that.
Great.
Ms. Munoz, thank you again.
This is our final slide where we're
oh,
showing our dates.
that's right.
That's a better slide to end on.
That's a little better than ending on the other one. Okay. So April 20th, we shall be back in here talking about the budget with public input. Can you shoot us that presentation to our
Yes.
inbox or upload it
Your
to
board
our?
reports, and we'll have it on our website
Great.
later this evening or tomorrow.
Thank you so much.
Thank you all very
Appreciate all your
much.
hard work, especially at the 11th hour.
Oh, it's our budget department. Billy and I are the budget department for the whole district, so we worked hard on that.
Well, that's a good department we got. That's a,
Yep. Thank you
thank
very
goodness
much.
for them. Thank you very much. Thank you too, Billy. I think this concludes our budget workshop meeting. We'll see you at 6 o'clock. Thank you.